What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. We've got another great episode for you guys today. Hope you all have had a wonderful holiday, happy holiday, and we're coming into the new year. So I wanted to, I've got a few special videos. I'm gonna start with some, something not so special, but we're gonna build into it, and you're gonna see because there's some really important stuff here. So let's get into it. Also, this is for entertainment purposes only. Don't believe anything that I say. Don't believe anything that you see in these videos. Do your own research. Don't trust anyone or anything. Do your own research. Come to your own conclusions. And then once you come to those conclusions, or you have questions, or we come to those conclusions together, we can talk about them and forward. That's how things move forward. So let's get into it.
This is the real truth about the Bermuda Triangle. All of the theories you have been told are wrong. There is no curse, or aliens, or sea monster there that is taking down ships and planes. All these theories have been created purposefully to mislead you. The truth is that the Bermuda Triangle is where all the rockets land that fail to break the firmament. The government has been trying to break the firmament for a while, hence Operation Fishbowl, where they sent nukes up into the atmosphere. We can't leave Earth because of this dome, which is why all the pictures of Earth are CGI. When rockets are shot up into the air, they all curve across the firmament and land in the Bermuda Triangle. The government deliberately created these myths about the triangle to keep people from traveling there and discovering the hundreds of rockets that are supposed to be in space. And if anyone does try to travel there, the military will engage and stop you threatening to attack. This is all just a conspiracy theory, but the evidence is very convincing.
So I hope you know that that was not Joe Rogan, that's AI, and that was all completely lies. I mean, the Operation Fishbowl is not a lie, but and we did send nukes, into space and to the moon, and but people go to the Bermuda Triangle all the time. People fly through it all the time. Years ago, when this was a big topic, planes would film themselves going through the Bermuda Triangle because other pilots have talked about their electronics going wonky and then seeing this tunnel, and they've written books about it. I've read a few of them, so yeah, people fly through that all the time. I'm not sure that they're trying to act like the Bermuda Triangle is Antarctica with like a no-fly zone or something, or like Area 51 with a no. That's preposterous. So I do have I have a good bit of these leaves, and I've given them to people, and I also have the concentrated sour sop that are made with a mortar and pestle from and the leaves are alive. Uh, they're beautiful. They're huge. They're alive. Uh, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to prescribe anything, but I would say, you know, if you have cancer, why not try the natural stuff that can actually destroy cancerous cells before you go into something like radiation, which destroys the body. So why not? I've given this to people that I've known that have had cancer, and certain types of cancer, not every kind. I haven't dealt with every kind, just a few kinds, but it did kill the cancer cells. Doctors didn't know why, so I do have these, and I get them shipped in, and I give them out freely to people. Um, I keep not a lot, but I keep a decent amount, here, and if something happens to a loved one, a friend, a relative, I have it to give to them. My thing is at least try it. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But I've never seen it not work. Again, not a doctor, not saying go do this. I'm just telling you my experience. Say that.
Our scientists know that the planetary magnetic fields have a whole lot to do with memory and with the function of human consciousness. They don't exactly know why yet, but the why is because consciousness is connected to the DNA template, and the DNA template is made of scalar wave patterns, which are electromagnetic wave patterns. So if there is a large magnetic disruption in the planetary fields, you can do amazing things to the DNA of life forms on that planet. The reason we have no memory right now is because of something that was done in Atlantis. And the reason it is very important that we begin to try to very quickly grasp as much of ourselves as we can, even if we don't know we have our avatar levels of self. If we can begin with believing that we do, that's how you find them. You're not going to be able to integrate your higher parts of self unless you realize they're there. But right now, we have about 2 years, not even really, we have to the end of 2002 to reach a certain level of fixing planetary grids, that if it is not accomplished, there's going to be something called Plan B put in motion. Now, when I talk about Plan A and Plan B, Plan A was the founders' plan of what they would do when the stellar activation cycle came. They had a set of things they wanted to do to get the planetary grids fixed so this place would not go into pole shift. Plan B happens when Plan A doesn't work. Plan B would be evacuations. I've never, ever been the doom and gloom type person. And I told the Iani when I was working with them the last couple of years, say, don't start talking to me about pole shift because I don't want to hear it. You have all sorts of people out there in the New Age movement, saying all sorts of horrible things are going to happen. If it's that bad, we can't do anything about it. I don't want to know, and I certainly don't want to teach it. And they said, all right, well, actually, it's not that bad. We've focused on solutions all along. We've had to very quickly move through helping people to understand Cathara healing, so they'd understand their body systems, tangible structure of the soul, so they'd understand how those body systems plug into their spiritual consciousness systems, and then very quickly go into planetary grid mechanics, so we could begin to work with the planetary grids to create healing. And a lot has been done already. We've made great accomplishments. But at this point, our accomplishments have been done so well in healing the planetary grids that the agendas of the fallen angelic races, agendas they've held, literally, since the Atlantean period, when they were just going to saunter in here and just take over the place very easily. They were going to actually come in and introduce themselves with names like Moses and say, hi, we created you. We're your space brothers, and just show us how to run our planet better. And there was an objective at the end of it. They don't want humans. They don't even want surface Earth. Earth is a strategic location for something called the Halls of Amente Stargates. Earth has portals that lead directly into the Halls of Amente Stargates. The Halls of Amente Stargates are a universal stargate system that literally extends into all of the primary stargates in our 15-dimensional time matrix. That's what they're after. Earth is the most vulnerable link in the chain of galaxies that have connection to the Halls of Mente Stargates. So what they had in mind for us, way back in Atlantis when they set this plan, was make us stupid, erase our memories, give us some false books and things, take the old books and just insert stuff and take out the good stuff, have us like little sheep by the time they were ready to come in, then set a series of events in motion that would make them able to come in very easily with no resistance. Now, one of the ways to do that would be, first of all, to have people believing in an externalized God that's outside of themselves, that has a certain name and a certain face. All right, you already got an image to use when you come in to say hi that people will be receptive to. Part of the plan, and this is called the Illuminati Master Plan, the One World Order Master Plan, was to set up, about 100 years before, subtle contact. That's when the channeling movement started. Subtle contact with their races. Their races, meaning the hybrid races, who don't have human souls incarnate in them, but who have either Anunnaki or Draconian souls incarnate in them. The interesting thing is, we've all been taught, since our memory was erased, that we're only one race. We have bodies that are very similar, and because of what's been done to the DNA, right now our DNA appears to be the same, because certain portions of the DNA are repressed in both races, so the similarities show that the differences don't. About 100 years ago, the channeling movement actually got its seeds planted, because it was time. That's when the Anunnaki started to connect with some of their hybrids. Their hybrids don't know they're hybrids. They don't. They think they're just human like anybody else. They don't know what human is either. You know? The hybrid people are not bad people. It's not that they're, bad fallen angelic people. They're just people who lost their memory too. And the reason they lost their memory is they were trying to rebel against and get away from the fallen angelic collectives in Atlantis. That was part of the reason. They had their hybrids that were saying, well, we're starting to grow and understand that the ways you're doing things and dominion and killing other life forms and things, that's wrong. We don't want to be part of your collective anymore. They were going into what was called the Emerald Covenant Christos contract. And that meant that the fallen angelic's hold on the planet was getting less and less. If they lost their hybrid races, they would have a very hard time coming in directly, because most of them can't live physically on this planet because of their own biologies. Now, even our...
What do you guys think of that? I haven't heard it put like that before. I've heard all of that information before. I haven't heard it, combined like that. And it just sounds like the same thing I've heard many times, just with different titles on different things. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. If you have any info on this, it's rare that I don't have a comment on something, but this just seems like, I can see they're using a projector, so this is obviously like late 70s, 80s, or early 90s, that time frame, because there's one of those big projectors right there, and I could tell by the quality of the video. But I just don't know if I have no way of knowing if what she's saying is fact or not. I have no way of testing this. I've heard this type of thing multiple ways, take the titles out and put new characters with other titles, and it makes up many stories. So I really don't know, but let me know what you guys think.
Wow, the pyramid, first of all, when you stand next to the Great Pyramid, time slows down because it's time dilation bubble. They knew all of this stuff. I mean, the Great Pyramid itself is a gigantic multifunctional stone computer and power generator. It's got multiple functions. And so when you begin to analyze it as a technological device, not as a monument, all of a sudden, all these question marks start popping up. And when you begin to start looking for answers to those question marks and start studying engineering books, you start to see that we're looking at a real machine. And it's so ingenious how they built this. There's a couple ways that it could happen. First of all, it never was a mud ramp. Mud ramps is a complete farce, because you would need more mass than the pyramid in mud.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? And when you stand next to these megalithic blocks, you're going to realize you can't put them on top of tree logs. You got to go get the tree logs from Turkey and bring them all the way down to Egypt. And then you got to get these stones and put them on top and roll them in the sand. The more asinine it begins to sound. But when you start to look at some of the writings, and you hear that Thoth talks about a couple different things. First, it was a quarry that they used to harvest some of these stones. And you can see that, and you can witness it. You can go there and see that. They obviously had some type of gravity control system. Wow, the pyramid, first of all, when you stand...
Yeah, I can attest to that. Pyramids do make you feel something that seems a bit esoteric. It's like many other places on the planet. We've got ley lines all throughout the planet that our ancient ancestors knew about. They marked, they built things, many things on those ley lines at those cross points, and you can feel certain things there. It's been obvious for a long time that the Great Pyramids of Giza not tombed, because there was nothing found in there. No mummies found in there. No, there were no tombs in there. You know, it was. I can't remember how far away, but it was a bit a ways away where they found Pharaoh's chambers and all of these other mummies like Akhenaten, Tutankhamun. That's pretty common knowledge. But yeah, there's something that you feel differently when you're there, but there's also a lot of I don't want to discredit it, but there's also like when I was there, there's a lot of wind and there's a ton of trash swirling around. Like uh, you get these little what do you call them, dust storms, and because there's so much trash from tourism, the dust storm just has trash in it, you know, and it's really puts a damper on one of the great wonders of the world. Um, it's obvious that we had uh, control over gravity, over inertia, and more than likely, my personal is they used sound, and I've always thought that. And it's strange that people are, you know, just recently coming to that because it's been a pretty well known thing for a very long time. It just wasn't out there to the masses because you have all of these blockades. You have, you know, religion, you have uh, dynasties, and all of these things that are telling you otherwise. But you know, proof is in the pudding. It's very evident that they used sound to do this. You know, they have the stones that they're built with. You know, you cannot fit a piece of paper. Um, that kind of degree of perfection, you know, NASA, uh, NASA shuttles don't even have that. Not even close. So I know that for a fact. So yeah, I mean, but Billy Carson's a great guy. You know, he's done a lot of research. I don't think he has any degrees in anything, but he does deal with the people who do, and he gets a lot of great information out there, and it's good to see.
Moses is not the real name. That's the made-up name. It really was Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was ushering in monotheism in Egypt while he was a pharaoh, worshiping Amen-Ra, the great Amen. Amen-Ra was one of these Anunnaki people said, look, from now on, there'll be no other God but me. That made it into the Bible. When you say thanks, you say thanks to me. You say amen. That made it into the Bible. Teach the people only to worship me, not any of my other relatives. I'm the only one and true God. They kicked him out of Egypt. They kicked the Pharaoh out of Egypt, and he fled with his new followers. They crossed the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, which they tell you in the Bible. Nobody ever crossed the Red Sea. It's a mistranslation by accident on purpose. They crossed a much smaller, much easier to cross sea. People realized the information that they had been brought up learning was actually severely inaccurate, and that the information is based on plagiarized tablets between Islam and Christianity and Buddhism and all these other religions that have taken from the same tablets. And the real stories are in the tablets. A full, unedited, undoctored, and change these words around here and there, you know, that's not done in the tablets. The tablets is what it says. When you come to the Bible, all of a sudden you get to a lot of text like Jesus saying, honor your slave master as you would honor me. Do you think that just guy would really say something like that if he's all this light and he's a light being and he's all about love and salvation, and then he's telling you now, no, you better obey that slave master? Come on, that's somebody, you know, let me write this in there because it's going to benefit us when we write this in. We can tell the slaves, hey, you see what Jesus said? You better listen to Jesus. So this is a lot of twisting and turning. The Bible is a remix, is what it really is. Moses is not the.
So what do you guys think of that? I've heard different things. I remember a lot of Egyptologists over the years have said Moses was not his name. It was Moses as his surname, so it could have been Tat Moses, Fa Moses, you know, Moses as a surname. That's what archaeology has said over the years. But we all know that there's so much fraud in the world that and people aren't always right. So who knows what the real truth is, But I do remember reading a lot about Akhenaten, and he looked very different. He had an elongated head, he had a big pot belly, and he introduced monotheism and he wanted all of the other pharaohs, their visages, their image destroyed and his put up. And then, once his reign was over, they they literally tried to erase him from history. You know, every statue, every figure, every drawing that had him in it, they were getting rid of. But yeah, Amen Ra, that is where we get Amen from. So there's always a bit of truth, and that's the hard part. There's a bunch of lies and then a little bit of truth, and so you have to sift. You have to sift through all of this BS and then find that bit of truth, and then sift through a bunch more BS, find that bit of truth, and you do this over and over and over, and you find these bits and pieces of truth, and then you come to a realization that that most people don't come to. And it's strange that it's like they had the best misinformation program before misinformation was even a thing, you know, or disinformation, however you want to say it. It's just strange.
In the archives at the Vatican, first of all, it's about 5 miles of archives underground in very, very secure access. In other words, you can't just go, I'm going to go check out the archives underground. No, you have to be security cleared, almost top secret cleared based on their standards to get down there. Down there also, according to even some Jesuits, are bones of actual alien beings, information about advanced beings that visited this planet, the Anunnaki. They have all these relics and artifacts of these particular people. They have information even out of Iraq that shows and proves that advanced races had lived on this planet long before this current civilization here exists. I'm talking about eons and eons ago, super highly advanced with technologies and capabilities of flight and everything else, weapons of war that existed. All that information is stored underneath the Vatican archives, along with some of the most incredible texts and books and inventions that ever existed on this planet. And they siphon it away, and they're hoarding all of that wisdom and knowledge so that they can keep control and power and domination over the world. And guess what? It's working. In the
I could talk. I have talked literally for hours about the Vatican. I have nothing good to say about them whatsoever. When they came out with this new telescope and they named it Lucifer, the light bringer, and then with the that massive auditorium, and then they had that artist design right behind the papal throne, his seat. They're trying to say that's Jesus, and it looks literally like if you read Dante's allegories, Dante, he's the one that gave us or Christians. He's the one that gave Christians the current thoughts of what hell is like. He talks about the 7 levels of hell and going through them escorted by an angel. And yeah, that 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 artist rendition behind the papal seat is exactly what you would think of when you think of hell. And then not to mention, that massive room with the lights that turn. When you look at the entire ceiling, it's a giant serpent. It's a Nakash, serpent. Yeah. I mean, just imagine imagine they've been doing this for so many thousands of years. Vatican, you know, you've got the Spanish Inquisition, you've got the Knights Templar, that they just, you know, I couldn't even imagine having to go through, and then they force fed this upon the rest of the world. So after Council of Nicaea, which what I know took out 1126 books from the Bible, and now if you wanted to get one of the most authentic Bibles, you would have to have one that I have, which is the Ethiopic Bible, the Ethiopian one. That has Enoch and all of these other apocryphal books in it, but they're not apocryphal because they're within that canon. They're canonized within the Ethiopic Bible. So, yeah, you know, otherwise you have to get Strong's Concordance and cross-reference everything. And, you know, I have like 8 or 9 right behind me, you know, Bibles, multiple religion, different versions. But yeah, just imagine what the Vatican has hidden down there. I mean, it doesn't anger me, it aggravates me when I think that, you know, I've said this in other videos, the Library of Alexandria, you know, Alexander the Great, or like the Arabs called him Iskandar the Great, you know, because of Allah, Alexander, you know, so he had the greatest library that had ever been created. And there was a fire that was a complete farce, and then they just pulled everything out and kept it for themselves. And I mean, the kinds of things that they have held in there, it would change history. But not only would it change history, it would change their religion, you know, forever, which needs to happen, in my opinion. And I'm probably going to get, excuse me, some hate for that. But yeah, there's nothing good I have to say about Catholicism. You know, I grew up in Europe. I grew up with a lot of Orthodox Christians, but I grew up with a lot of Catholics too. And the Catholics were just the worst because just like 2,000 years ago, when they weren't allowed to read the Bible, they weren't taught to read, so they had to rely on the bishop and the pope and all of this to give them the information. It's the same today. Go to a Catholic church. Go to St. John's or St. Mary's. Go to any Catholic church and just watch. They'll pick up a hymn book and they'll know the hymns, but when it comes to scripture, they've got no clue. Because their thing is, we can, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to go ahead because it's true. Their thing is, you know, we can go do whatever we want throughout the week, and then when we go to church on Sundays, we do our, you know, our Fathers and Hail Marys, and we're given our penance, and then everything's absolved. Back to it. You know, that's asinine to think that the universe would allow you to actually act like that and nothing will happen to you. You know, I'm gonna stop because I'm gonna say something that'll get me banned.
What was the miracles of Solomon? Solomon had the power to control and to command every living creature in this world and in the world we can't see. He had dominion over both dimensions, the dimension that we live in and the demonic dimension. In the Quran, it even says that he was building his temple and he commanded the demonic realm to dive to the deepest parts of the ocean and to remove pearls and treasures from the sea so he could decorate the temple with it. And these beings would go literally to the bottom of the ocean in a millisecond, in the flash of an eye, and bring him back these jewels. It mentions the Queen of Sheba in the Quran, where he sent for her to come to his kingdom, and he said, which one of you, and he's talking to the jinn, the demonic realm, and he tells them, which one of you will bring me her throne by the time she gets here? And then one of them will boast, I will. And within the blink of an eye, this throne appears in Solomon's kingdom. So that when Queen Sheba comes, she sees her own throne there. She's like, how is my throne here? And then she realizes she's dealing with Solomon, prophet of God, had power over both dimensions, bro. This is why the occult has always obsessed with Solomon.
So yeah, I don't know if you have heard of the Key of Solomon or the Keys of Solomon, but so it said that Solomon, he had a ring and he had dominion over, just like he said, everything in this realm and the next realm. And so he had dominion over demons. And so his amazing temple that he built it on the backs of demons. He used demonic power. He didn't invoke demonic power into himself. He had dominion over it, meaning he controlled them. So he had them do his bidding. And that's a very amazing thing, but it's also a very bad thing, because if he ever lost that power, those demons that were bound to him, first thing they would want is retribution because of his dominion over them. That's my perspective. You might have a different one, but yeah, they wouldn't like it.
Thomas Edison was a bad man. Do you know about all the stuff that he did to try to destroy Nikola Tesla? So Nikola Tesla was a God-given genius, if there ever was one. And he invented what is called the alternating current, which is what we use in all of our buildings today. He invented it from the direct current that was created by Thomas Edison. I believe Tesla created the alternating current while working for Edison, who had created the direct current. He created something better. Edison didn't like that. Nikola Tesla wanted to go out on his own, have his own inventions. It was clear cut that the alternating current was better than the direct current. Thomas Edison went on this smear campaign against Nikola Tesla, trying to destroy all of the funding that he might get. And so what he was doing was he would bring these elephants, like he would get elephants from India and from Africa, he would get them sailed into the US, and he'd get these other big animals and he'd take them into the streets, and he would basically say, don't listen to Nikola Tesla. His invention of the alternating current causes this to happen. And he'd show some kind of experiment, and he would electrocute an elephant to death. But you know what he was doing it with? The direct current that he invented, to electrocute elephants to death in the middle of a town square to smear Nikola Tesla. Thomas Edison was a bad man. Thomas Edison was a...
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine, I don't care what time period you live in. Could you imagine, somebody trying to prove a point and electrocuting an elephant to death to make a point? The agonizing pain that you could see on that creature is heart-wrenching, soul-wrenching. And they did this as a smear campaign. There's just some people that are just fucked up in this world, and there's no getting around it. Nobody's perfect. We all try to do our best, but stuff like that, fuck off.
Remember the whole concept of fallen angels? In Lebanon and in the area of Syria is a place called Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is supposedly where some of these fallen angels in the Book of Enoch came down. Now, the Book of Enoch, for people that don't know, was originally supposed to be a text in the Christian text, the Hebrew Christian text, but it was taken out. So the point is, these creators did something they weren't supposed to. They supposedly broke these universal cosmic laws that exist, that they're supposed to adhere to.
Which are?
Which are, creation can only happen if it's based on certain things. They violated creation by, and I hope I don't lose people with this, but they describe how they created us and we were so perfect that some of them had sex with the women. This is where we get into demi bloodlines. But the Book of Enoch predominantly says they were fallen, or they became fallen, because they slept with the daughters of men, and that's a Genesis too, and then created this abominated bloodline that was like half gods and half humans. And this is...
Let me pause. It did not say they slept with the daughters of men. It said they took the daughters of men for themselves. Whether the daughters wanted it or not, they took. It's not like it was a mutual relationship. So don't let... See, this is exactly why I say do your research, because that is not what it says. Not say, oh, they fell and slept with the daughters of men because they found them attractive. It does say that they found them attractive. And they took them, not slept with. There's a big difference there.
This is what angered in those ancient texts I told you about, some of these gods falling out of favor with humanity and then putting us into basically hell. Creating hell here.
On Earth.
Yes. Remember the whole...
Everything Everywhere All at Once. You know, that was the theory that Terence McKenna had to the thing that's going to change the universe, is that one day someone's going to invent a time machine. And that when they invent a time machine, all time ceases to become linear. So you think if you have a time machine, well, I'll just go back to the time where they were making the pyramids and I'll watch them do it. That's not what it works like. What he was saying, you can't travel where there are no roads. So once a road gets built, then you can travel. So once a time machine gets invented, then anyone from the invention of the time machine forward to forever can come back to that moment and can go to any point in time from that moment to the end of time. So all time ceases to be linear. So there's no tomorrow will be Wednesday and the next day will be Thursday. No. It's everything happens everywhere all at once. So people can travel back and forth through time. You can never own anything because someone could just travel through time and take it away from you when you weren't looking. As time travel gets more and more sophisticated, you can go back and forth in time while you're talking to people. You know, if you don't like what you said, you could rewind and start all over again. If you're in an argument with your wife, you can go to the library and get information and come back and go, actually, Herodotus once said, and then bam, your wife thinks you're the smartest guy in the world. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Time is never linear. It's never been linear. Everything's always happening now. We put it in a linear fashion to make it understandable to us in our daily lives as Homo sapiens sapien. But time is not linear at all. It's not linear. Do your research on this. Everything is always happening now. So the only way I could think of what he's talking about is, we shift in and out of realities numerous times, throughout the day. But you make a decision, that decision or your intent creates a branch off of that time. And now you're going down that line. This line is still going, but you're going down this one as well. Make another decision. This way, it continues, but it's all now. So it's not like a river where you can go forwards and backwards and now. Everything is now. It's always now. It's never not now. I don't know how I can explain that. I don't think it's ineffable for me right now, at least. But yeah, it's time's never been linear.
Came across this really quite by chance. Found myself in the city of Aksum in Tigray in northern Ethiopia. And there were some strange processions going on and wonderful music and dancing and rituals being performed. And I asked, what's this all about? And they said, well, we have the Ark of the Covenant here. Ceremonials are in honor of the Ark of the Covenant. And you've got the Ark of the Covenant here? I'd just seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know? You've got the Ark of the Covenant here? Where? And they said, well, it's in that enclosure. And there's a huge religious enclosure in the heart of Aksum, which contains a 16th century church of St. Mary of Zion, and beside it a little chapel. And it's in that chapel that the Ethiopians claim the Ark is kept. And this is not a minor issue for Ethiopians. This is a very major issue for them. It's fundamental to Ethiopian culture. It's something that a lot of people don't understand. And it's kind of odd because the Ark of the Covenant is a pre-Christian relic, and Ethiopia is largely a Christian country. Why is Ethiopian Christianity, which is very Old Testament in its form, very un-New Testament in its form, why is it, but still calling itself Christianity, why is it venerating a pre-Christian, non-Christian relic?
So Aksum in Ethiopia, yeah, that's I believe that's where the Queen of Sheba was. But also they've done archaeologists have gone there and they've seen where, you know, Aksum on the edge of the sea, you know, you have to go up, you know, you park your boat and your vessel, whatever, then you go up the mountain, and then there are these spots where there's concrete in the ground, and then you see these metal handles where they held the Ark of the Covenant in a circle. And then if you look at what was it, the Wall of Jericho, if you look at the what they wore, the Ethiopians have those exact uniforms, the chest plates, the armor, everything. They have them to the T. It matches the drawings, it matches archaeological information to the T. And they do claim to have the Ark of the Covenant there. But, so what happens is, one of them, I can't remember the age, I don't know if it's 16 or 18 or what, but so I don't know if you call him a priest or a bishop or what, but he goes to live in that building where the ark is, and it's gated and it's got armed guards all around it. And you know, people have gone there many times. Journalists have gone there. They've asked them, you know, have you seen the Ark of the Covenant? You know, I think the last one I said yes, and he knew for a fact that it was there. But also, they have these parades at some point of the year. I can't remember when, but they'll have these parades, and different villages will build a copy of the Ark of the Covenant. They'll parade it down the streets, you know, together, and that's part of their ceremony. But you know, that's not a big deal. But the big deal is the fact that they have a spot wide open where it was originally sat. Concrete was poured, the handles on the ground for the rods to go through to hold it up, and they have this little shed with even the I forget what it's called, but it looks like an upside down shield, and it's where they would sacrifice the chicken or the goats, and I don't know if I can say this, the BLOOD, you know, would come out, and then they would pour it. They have all of this, and scientific data has dated this to that exact time, you know, of Christ. And so they have probably the most genuine relics of some of the things, some of the stories that are told in the Bible anywhere in the world. Now, whether they have the ark or not, no one knows, because when that person goes to live in that building, he never leaves for the rest of his life. He lives on that land where the building is. There's a little front yard, gated. It's the building. Ark of the Covenant is said to be within that building. Armed guards around. He never leaves that property. Will bring him food and drink on a daily basis, because he's protecting what they hold most sacred. So he never leaves, ever. And before he passes, he has to nominate a successor. And it's gone on like that for, from what they say, a couple thousand years, more or less. But yeah, it's still very interesting. It's extremely interesting because, they might. Nobody's seen it. Then again, they might not. Could be like the rest of the villages where they're portraying a relic, a copy of that relic. So who knows? You'll never get into there. You'll never get permission to see it. You'll never get permission to walk in there. So there's no way. But I do think there's some credit to the fact that the Ethiopic Bible is the only original untarnished one still today that has the Book of Enoch, all of these canonized texts that were left out of what was the end result from the Nicene Council. So that's my thoughts on it.
It's September the 4th, 1954. Just an ordinary day, or so it seemed. Santiago Flight 513, a commercial plane taking off from Aachen, Germany, was getting ready for its routine journey to Santiago, Chile. The plane was packed with 88 passengers and crew, ready to take to the skies and reach their destination. Little did they know, they were about to be part of one heck of a mystery. Out of nowhere, without any warning, Santiago Flight 513 vanished from the radar. All communication was cut off, and it was as if the plane and everyone on board had been swallowed up by some kind of black hole. They searched high and low, hoping to find any trace of the missing aircraft. But hold on to your hats, because things get even weirder. Fast forward 35 years to October the 12th, 1989, and we got ourselves an unexpected twist. The air traffic control tower at Porto Alegre Airport in Brazil was minding its own business when bam! They spotted something weird on their radar screens. An unidentified aircraft just popped out of thin air, totally out of the blue. The whole airport was buzzing. Airport officials were on the edge of their seats, hearts racing, as they tried to make sense of this eerie situation. Was this some kind of ghost plane or a time-traveling aircraft? Nobody had a clue, but one thing was for sure. The legend of Santiago Flight 513 was back in the spotlight, and the mystery was far from over. The airport security team approached the aircraft, but they discovered the shocking truth. It was indeed Santiago Flight 513, the very same flight that had vanished 35 years ago. But what awaited them inside the cabin was a scene that would forever haunt their memories. As the security team made their way through the eerie stillness of the aircraft, they were met with a bone-chilling sight. The passengers and crew who had boarded the flight all those years ago sat in their seats, frozen in time, their bodies reduced to nothing more than skeletal remains. The whole cabin, once alive with chit-chat and the hum of the engines, was now an eerie graveyard, frozen in time, leaving investigators and the public scratching their heads and wondering what actually happened.
I've heard that story for a while now. My question is, if everybody on board were skeletons, who landed the plane? How did the plane land? I'm not saying there aren't, extra dimensional forces make that happen. I'm just wondering who landed it. It could have been something extra but they say everybody on that plane was reduced to skeletal remains. So who landed it? And also, what did they go through? They've been gone decades. And somehow they're all, seated properly in their seats. There's not people on the floor. There's not people, trying to get into the pilot's chamber, that hatch, any of that stuff. They're just there with skeletal remains. It's just strange. It's amazing. It's an amazing story, but it's just very strange.
Collected at least 9 non-human spacecraft from all over the world over the last 20 years. The Daily Mail also reporting of those 9 spacecraft, 1 had crashed with considerable damage. The 2 others were completely intact. The retrieval mission was allegedly performed by the military, and then these spacecraft were handed off to private corporations.
Whatever they are not of human origin, nor do they behave according to the laws of known physics. And yes, the U.S. government currently has physical evidence that they exist. That means wreckage of the craft as well as the bodies of the beings that flew them.
That something with the capabilities of traveling light years, not showing a heat signature, and the energy capabilities of that would put the Pentagon out of business. We wouldn't be fighting these worthless wars overseas over oil, and American boys and girls wouldn't be dying. It would put the war pigs out of business, and they'd have to go somewhere else, and I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Okay, let me preface these next few by, these are they're polar opposites, so I want to know your guys' opinions in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and play them, and then we can discuss them after. They're very intriguing.
Scientists cut this man's brain in half while he was alive and proved that your human consciousness, your sense of self, or your soul is all a lie. So everybody's brain is separated into 2 halves. The left deals more with speech and language, and the right with motor control and movement. And normally these 2 halves communicate to each other through a thick band of nerve fibers. But this man and many others like him cut those bands of nerve fibers to prevent epilepsy seizures. And this not only separated his physical brain, but gave him 2 separate forms of consciousness. Scientists actually proved this by putting a divider in between the man's eyes and putting a picture of a hammer on the left and a picture of a saw on the right. Interestingly, when he was asked what he saw, he said he only saw the hammer because his left eye saw the hammer picture and fed it to the left side of his brain, which controls speech.
What'd you see? Hammer?
But when asked to draw what he had seen, he drew the saw because his right eye saw the saw picture, and that controls movement and motor control. Even more interesting, when asked, why did you just draw a saw when you said you saw a hammer? The left side of the brain, the speech side, made up an answer. He said he must have seen a saw when he was walking to the lab that day. This proves that there's more than one you inside of you. And the feeling of consciousness and the feeling of self that you have is really just fabricated by your brain because of your circumstances and your environment.
So you'll always hear me say, your senses are just translators for your brain. Our senses are very dumb. If you think of, 100% of the light spectrum, our eyes can only see 1% of that light spectrum. We have to invent devices to allow us to see other spectrums of light. Sound is the same way. Take a dog, take my purebred German Shepherd, or a snake. They both can smell molecules in the air, specific molecules. They can smell at a molecular level, in the air. They can taste it. We can't do that. cats are said to be able to see things in beyond the veil vision of what we can see. You know, dolphins are extremely intelligent, probably more intelligent than us, and the only animal that has sex fun, not just to reproduce. So our brains are just translators for our senses. There is no possible way I would ever believe that consciousness is a lie and it's tied to her. That is a preposterous thing to say. That is ignorant, arrogant, and unfounded. So let's get to the next one. We're building here. You're gonna see where I'm going.
But starting my journey, amnesia. I had no memory of anything. I was in this dirty kind of underground space. I call it the earthworm's eye view. I remember roots or blood vessels all around me. It was like being in dirty jello. There was this pounding, monotonous sound to it all. It seemed to go on forever and ever. And since I had no memory of anything else, it wasn't as foreboding as it sounds. I simply accepted it. This is existence. This is it. Now, what happened after that, though, was there was a slowly spinning white light that came with a perfect musical melody, and it approached me out of the murky darkness. And as it did, it opened up like a rip in the fabric of that ugly earthworm eye view, led up into this brilliant, ultra-real gateway valley. And that's where things really started to get absolutely astonishing. The sense of reality, and you must understand, people often say these experiences are ineffable. That is, you can't put them into words.
So, I just want to present, this is Dr. Eben Alexander II, and he had an NDE, near unalive event. Now, he was the top neurosurgeon on the East Coast, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was the East Coast. So he ended up, he was, I can't recall if he was atheist or agnostic, but he was one of the two. I thought it was atheist, though, but I might be wrong. It's been years since I've read about him. Anyways, so he ends up with crippling pain and cannot function. So wife, calls emergency services. They rush him to the hospital. Now, the type of infection going to his brain is meningitis. I don't know if you understand how deadly meningitis can be, but it can start with the teeth and then penetrate the blood-brain barrier and really mess you up. Now, in a normal situation, he would be the doctor that you call to fix it, but he's the one having it. And I can't remember if they ever found where it came from or any of that. But his experience was so profound that he wrote this amazing book. His book is just truly amazing. But the thing is, he came back knowing about the afterlife. He had this knowing, and it took him a while to regain his memories, because when he came back to consciousness, he had none. He had no memories other than what he had just been through. Other than that, he couldn't recognize his own son or his wife or any of that. And so he had this, this amazing transcendence that showed him what all was out there. And ever since, he has dedicated the rest of his life to talking about this and teaching people about it. And these are experiences that, can't put a price on, because you'll see someone completely do a 180 with their life because of an experience. And I always talk about universal laws. There's all of these universal laws, and we're not taught that. We're taught a lot of man's laws, but we're not taught a lot of universal law. These universal laws literally are written in stone in the fabric of our universe. They are written in sound, vibration, frequency. All of that plays a major role in how we function on a daily basis. I don't understand why people are just now getting into like being like, believe me, I say this in all of my videos. I love that so many people are waking up. That's a great thing. That's a beautiful thing. I absolutely adore it. I unconditionally love that people are waking up. I truly do. But it is not a new thing to realize that our magnetosphere goes to the east and our electric field goes to the west. And so we create this torsion field north to south. That's not a new thing. People are talking about it like it's a new thing. It's preposterous. It's not new at all. But the one thing I just want to point out is, you tell me, what would make a person have an experience so profound that it not only changes their entire life paradigm, just flips it upside down, but also takes the path that he was on, branches off of that path to create a whole new path later in life. There are very few experiences that can do that. But what I've found is within NDEs, you will see that a lot. And I can tell you a lot more about NDEs, but I don't want to insult anyone's belief system or religion. But what I can tell you is I've seen this in people in numerous countries, and they don't have the exact same experience, of course, not even close to the same experience. They have their own experiences based on where their soul is at. But this man dropped everything to talk about this. That's a huge, huge ordeal. And with the amount of time that, just like myself, with the amount of time that he had been unalived, if he did ever make it back, just like when I did, he should have been a vegetable. He should have no brain function at all. Yet he can recall seeing so many things. So it's like, finally, somebody that would never say these things or never even entertain these thoughts is now focusing their intellect on it. And that's beautiful. I love it. It's a beautiful thing.
An atypical feature of my near-death experience was that I was amnesic, that I had no memories of Eben Alexander's life, no knowledge of this universe, of humanity, no language. Every bit of that was gone. And I think that empty slate was very important for some of the lessons I was to learn. But it is an unusual feature. You don't often find that kind of complete amnesia for life during an NDE. And of course, when I first came back to this world, when my neuroscience memories were still not back, but I knew from talking to my doctors I had a severe case of meningitis. I thought, well, I guess that would explain why those memories seemed to disappear, because I was still harboring the illusion that memories are stored in the brain. But we discuss in our book, Living in a Mindful Universe, all the scientific evidence that memories are not stored in the brain at all. And anyway, deep in this experience, the way it all started was Earthworm's Eye View, primitive coarse unresponsive realm, like I was in dirty jello, roots or blood vessels all around me. I had no body awareness at all during this phase of the journey. If I had just gone to that earthworm's eye view and come back to this world, I would have had a hellish NDE or a negative NDE. But that's not what happened. I was rescued by this slowly spinning white light. That is extraordinary, and I think it's going to lead to a complete shift in our worldview that is unprecedented. And this living in a mindful universe is really about that scientific revolution.
Are you discounting whether the brain controls consciousness?
No, I think what we would say is the brain is a reducing valve or filter that allows primordial consciousness in. That is, the brain is not the creator of it. You cannot explain all of the details of human experience, especially all the evidence for non-local consciousness, the evidence for things like reincarnation, past life memories in children, indicative of reincarnation, things like that, if you think the brain is the producer of consciousness.
So what is the producer?
Well, consciousness is what exists and generates the entire universe. It's the fundamental ground state.
Consciousness now, right?
It's all consciousness. It's all generated within consciousness. I mean, the thing to remember is we're under, we discuss in the book, what we call the supreme illusion, and that is that the brain and mind are very good at convincing us that all this stuff around us is out there. But what you're actually experiencing is a model deep within mind that is supposed to represent something that is out there. But I think that's where it's important to point out the mystery of quantum physics, because the experiments in quantum physics keep showing us in no uncertain terms that consciousness is fundamental, that the conscious observer and our free will has everything to do with determining outcomes. It's not determined by mechanistic chemical reactions and the laws of physics and chemistry applied to the brain.
Doesn't it almost destroy everything you learned?
Absolutely not. In fact, it opens the door to a far broader understanding. Because what we're saying is the brain is simply a reducing valve that allows certain conscious states to exist. And this is where, from the quantum physical standpoint, it's really getting at what's known as the observer. That is the deep mystery, is the awareness of existence. And what I would submit is that we're conscious in spite of our brain. And so, in fact, the big surprise and kind of the practical lesson for human beings is that when your physical brain and body die, your conscious awareness actually expands tremendously. That is extraordinary, and I think it's going to lead.
Okay, I'm going to go to a video that I'm not very sure about, and I would love to hear your guys' opinions in the comments. I know universal laws that most people don't know and don't know how to find them. Things like the Akashic Records and, cause and effect and these types of things, they exist in law. It's literally written in the fabric of space-time. These are the laws that we live by. But this intrigues me. I saw this on Gaia, and then I found this video, and what actually interests me is the fact that this person is supposed to be channeling a collective, kind of like Bashar. Might be a snake oil salesman, might not be. Who knows? I don't know. This person might be the same, and reason that it's impressive because they snap back on this content, explaining in such a precise and fast manner that it's very rare to hear even experts in fields talk like that about those things. I am an expert in a few fields, and I can't talk like that about everything this person does. So I'll let you watch, I'll let you be the judge, and you guys tell me what you think, because maybe I'm missing something, maybe you've seen something on it that I haven't, but let's just get into it and see.
So this getting to the co-creation idea, and we have relationships with family and friends, and
only in that now, right?
Only in that now.
Only in that now. The memory of your family being there is what you perceive them as in the now. So if, in other words, you have a problem with a family member because they're this way or that way, as soon as they come into your world and you perceive them in that, that's the version you get of that co-created world in that now.
Right.
Make sense?
So in order to get the version of the family that we desire,
You've got to change.
We have to change.
You cannot idealize them in that way anymore,
Right.
which means you're idealizing yourself in that way.
Okay.
You understand that you're judging them. Why? Because they did this, they did this, they did this, and you get mad and you get angry and you want revenge and you're like, stop it, I hate you, blah, you're doing this to me, and you understand that. And that goes for anything, co-workers, lovers, ex-lovers, whatever. But that is an idea of you judging yourself in creation. To understand that's a lost God that actually chose the bravery of being a lost idea God in humanity. So ownership is in play in one way. Okay, the idea of charity, which is compassion in another way, to view them as doing their best. There's no not best of every self of the now. Everyone is doing the best they can. They can't choose the worst of themselves. They only, in their subjective universe, can only idealize themselves. That idea now is the best choice. But of course, people make choices, and then regret comes in and says, damn, I shouldn't have done that. Yes, you should have. Because without that, you don't have the realization of what you're not.
Right.
So when you covet that idea, belief system of the fear-based ideas and the reptilians and doing that, then you, on your individual singularity Earth that goes down this timeline, becomes your reality.
Sure.
Or, bullshit, I'm going this way. And that co-creation with all those people on this timeline that are vibrating at the frequency, you get that version. Your parents change, people change, the government changes, the world changes because you change. It's a mirror.
Yeah.
You smile, the mirror smiles. It can work no other way. It is a law. What you put out is what you get back. It cannot be overridden, ignored, or amended.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
It is so beautiful, the simplicity of universe, how it works. But it is so hard to understand that from the standpoint of thousands and thousands upon thousands of millennia of collapsed timelines of humans' co-creation to understand this idea that it can be a different way. So through this evolution, you give yourself breadcrumbs, this and that, and ideas, and Tommy loves the show Ancient Aliens, and all this stuff that you look at, and you just can't deny it anymore. So that's the idea, and here we are, knowing that you had no gods to a lot of gods to one big angry God to I can go to God through the God's Son, and now holy shit, I'm God.
So tell me what you guys think of that. I think I've got one more video of this person. Let me check.
Higher self. All you is this Roxy's body, okay? And Roxy is the skin on this fingertip. So to understand an expression of Roxy, the energy behind it creates Roxy. Roxy goes out and feels reality, okay? She's a dream. She's being dreamt of, truly. And that idea of the higher self. So Roxy co-creates with you. In this now, okay? Do you see an entire Earth there? No.
Right.
You see two people co-creating in the now. Tommy's here, so that's three people. Now, when you guys tune in, it's the same now from a different perspective of the people out there watching. All focusing on this moment. Now, look at all these individual parts of you. The higher self, or you can go with the standpoint of oversoul, that's fine. All of them are having individual singularities. Portions of you having experiences with co-creation. There's no one Earth. There's billions. It's so unique. And what's created in every single now is the memory. The now creates the past and the future. So you're in this timeline. Roxy jumps over to this timeline, and then this timeline, and this timeline. In every moment, it seems perfect because she gives herself the memory of that now. Make sense?
The memory of that now. So,
of the now of the expression that she's choosing. So this is actually, in sometimes, playing out tomorrow. But we're giving ourselves of tomorrow. This is playing out today. Me and you just went to lunch. We came back and co-created again in this now. But we actually got here just now and gave ourselves the memory of time passed between when we filmed this morning and lunch now. But we actually didn't spend all of that time in that now in what? Physical reality. We only spend a portion of it. Then we give ourselves the memory that we actually spend every single second here. That's one aspect.
Right.
But the uniqueness of the nows are so individual, but you give yourself in memory the experience of the entire Earth, and it's all one big Earth. It's your choice. The vibration of you and what you validate in every now becomes your world in continuation. The more you understand what is and is not about yourself, the more evolution of the natural higher self comes through to you, and your whole world changes. So disclosure doesn't happen to happen on your world. You could have had all this stuff 20 years ago. You can change anything and everything according to you. Now, a lot of things the human collective as a whole does not want to change because the evolution of it is free will choice amongst the entire bubble. 8 billion people, as you said. All joining together to understand this evolution of a species. The species is evolving. So it's going to stay within a contextual flow to seamlessly understand time for the experience of the evolution. But each individual has that choice whether they want to hang out or not, and how they hang out and how they see it and how they perceive it is all individual, making up the entire thing of a whole Earth. Make sense? Keep going.
I'll probably have to digest it. But
Here, but let me give you this right here. You see this backyard?
Yeah.
Anything you can't see is not over there. The street is not over there.
Yes, I understand.
That's not over there.
Yep.
France is not over there. England is not over there. The only Earth that me and you and Tom are experiencing is this.
Correct.
And we get to shoot at, we create in the nows as we go.
Right.
And whoever we choose to co-create with is that Earth. So whatever you hear, the diarrhea of them outside breathing down your neck about what it is, it's your choice to accept that or not.
Right.
And as soon as you accept that portion, that idea of validation of fear, you're accepting a portion of reality that is fear-based over your own self. Truly. Higher self.
Okay, let me know what you guys think about that. I find it very curious. I find it intriguing. I know that the CIA use handlers to handle people that could remote view. They were TKs, you know, telekinetic, and they were channelers. I know that for an absolute fact, working for NASA and Homeland Security. And there are different types. So you have the type that can channel, and basically the person, the host, takes a back seat, like on a couch, while whatever they're channeling, whether it be one person or a collective, comes out, and the host has no idea what's going on. The other kind is where the entity or the collective come in, and the host is aware of everything that they're doing and saying, but they have zero control over it. It's almost like possession. That's why it would be called possession, to possess. So I'm not real clear on this. Let me know. Maybe you guys have some information that I don't. But I mean, it's just snapping off answers like it's nothing, and they make sense. Excuse me, and I'm saying that from a scientific background. They make sense. What doesn't make sense is how fast they're just popping off these answers, you know. So it's a very beautiful and brilliant thing. And if he is fake or she is fake, that's an amazing fake. You know, got me. But I'm just wondering what you guys think. So let me know in the comments. I'm curious if anyone has really seen this and actually taken it to heart, thought about it, or compared it with their own reality and perception. Curious to know what you guys think, so let me know. It's a good ways past my bedtime, so I have to work in the morning. So I will see you all tomorrow, because I definitely will be making another video for the new year. Also, I've read the comments. I like to communicate with you all. I apologize for my screen being bigger than the TikTok in one of my videos. My 49-inch Samsung OLED got messed up, which really hurt me, so I had to get 2 new monitors to compensate for that, and the resolutions are different, so when I switch them out it looks one way, and then when I export it, it's another way. So I wasn't aware of that. It's not that I was just trying to be front and center. That's never my goal. I'm trying to show you the content, not myself. But I appreciate the comments anyways, and I appreciate, you know, you guys letting me know. I always say, if there's something that I'm doing that is wrong or that you guys don't like, just let me know. You know, I'm new to this whole thing, you know, personally, so I'm learning as I go. You know, I'm not new to, you know, any of the devices or anything, but just in doing these types of videos, I'm new to. So I really do appreciate you guys letting me know. I don't take it to heart at all. I take it as constructive criticism, and my resolution's different over there than it is over here, so I fixed it. So hope you guys are good with that, and I will definitely see you on the next one before the new year. Hope you guys, from the heart, have a great holiday, great New Year's, and I appreciate every one of you that is tuned in. See you on the next one.